In this tutorial, I'm going to teach you the basics of Illustrator in order to make a logo using just some text and simple shapes. So on the right here, I have what I want to make, and on the left, I have just a couple of, I guess, what are these called? Text layers or text shapes that I'm going to use to change out the font and see how these look with this design. So real quick, I'm going to replicate this box and the burger part here. And to do that, I'm going to come over and click the rectangle tool, or you can hit M on the keyboard. And I'm just going to draw out a rectangle. Now I want this shape to have a stroke and not a fill. So I could come over here and click on this little arrow that'll flip it. Or I could come in here, tell this, whoops, come over to the properties window and go fill. No fill, stroke. Whoa. Let's make that black, and let's make it, let's go with 10. So I'm going to go back to my selection tool, the black arrow. You can also hit V on the keyboard for that. And let's just bring it over here and try and center it with what I had earlier. Yeah, sure, that looks good enough. I'm going to need to add a burger at the bottom here, so I'm going to hit T for my text tool up here and draw out a box real quick. And let's come over to our properties again. Oh, just kidding, over in the character window. And let's find that font. I think it was like typewriter or something like that. Yeah, that'll work. So right now, this burger that I just typed out is being read as type. So I can still adjust it, change the color. If I move this text box, it's not going to change the size of the burger type. And I want the software to read this as a shape. So to do that, I'm going to go up to Object, Expand. And it's asking me if I want it to expand both the object and the fill, so I'd be able to edit both of these. And I'm going to hit OK. So now if I click on this, it's reading this as a shape. So if I click and drag this around, you'll notice it's now changing the size. And if I toggle the white arrow tool or hit A, I could even get in here and then adjust the different anchors and handles. So I'm going to take this guy, scale it down, bring it over to my box, and try and center it. That is going to look okay. So I want to delete this section here. And so to do that, I'm going to go to my pen tool. And if I hover on the shape, you'll notice a little plus sign next to the pen tool. So I'm going to click right here, and we'll go with right here too. And so now, if I go back to my arrow tool, the white arrow by hitting A, I can then come on to this segment here. Oh, let's zoom in. Come on, computer. Oh. I can click on that path and hit delete. So it's really easy to mess that part up, so I'm going to undo. So if I have the white arrow tool and let's say I click over here and I hit delete, it's going to delete whatever segment you click on first. So try and get down here and just hit delete. That might take a couple of tries, so hit Command Z to undo if it's not doing what you want. But if you dive in there, find the segment that you want, select it. After you've added the 2 new anchor points and hit delete, you can then get that gap between your box. So that part is done. Let's add these little zigzags here. To do that, I'm going to hit P for the pen tool. And I'm just going to kind of draw out a little zigzag. And once I'm done, I toggled back to the white arrow and clicked away to tell it I'm done drawing a shape. So now I can drag this guy and position it at about the center if I'm looking at those pink guides that I had there. Oh, come on. Yeah, we'll call that good. And to duplicate this shape, I'm going to click, hold Option, and you'll notice that there's now 2 arrows showing that I'm duplicating it. And I'm just going to drag it over to this opposite side and let go. So now I'm going to do the same thing to get that gap here. I'm going to hit P for the pen tool. And, oh, it's not giving me that option. I'm going to hit plus on the keyboard. And now I have that add an anchor point to the path. And I'm just going to click up here and add some anchors. Go back to the white arrow tool, click off of the shape so that I can then click and select that particular segment I want and hit delete. Click off of it, click on the segment I want, hit delete, and click off the shape again. So now I have my frame ready to throw in the text. So over here I have a text object. I can still select the font and change all that. And I could pop this in here and just leave it as is. Let's bump up this font. And let's go for 150 for the font size. And I'll go back to my black arrow tool and scale up that text box so it'll reveal it. So this doesn't look bad, but I kind of want to see how this will feel with this text in here too. So I could go through the whole process of recreating the box, deleting all the segments, adding the zigzag and the new font down here too. Or I could just highlight everything, hit Command+G to group everything. So if I look to my layers down here, here's the group of everything I just made. And now I can click and drag this guy over here. Oh, actually, I want to duplicate that. So I'm going to click, hold Option, and drag. And now I have 2 groups. So I want to ungroup this now. So I'm going to right click on it, ungroup, and now I can select that part and get rid of it. So let's bring this down here, and instead of it reading as a text object, let's make it read it as a shape. So again, I'm going to go up to Object, Expand, and OK. And now I can scale this up. Just like that. Now let's say I want this M to then extend and become the zigzag over here. So let's select and delete these guys. And let's dive in here. And if I go to my white arrow tool, I can click and drag a selection range. And this is going to let me click on this segment here and just drag it way out. And let's select this range and drag the whole deal out this way. And let's take this handle and give it just a little bit more of a curve. We'll zoom out. And let's drag this guy a little bit closer. And that guy closer too. So if I want to manipulate the shape of any of these objects, I'm using the white arrow tool. That'll let me grab the anchors and the handles and manipulate them how I want. If I want to adjust the placement and the scale of an object, I'm going to switch to the black arrow tool. That's V on the keyboard. And that is going to let me adjust the size, shape, or actually, sorry, the size, scale, and rotation of the object. So that is how to make a logo in Illustrator using just a few simple tools. If you have any other questions or would like one-on-one help with how to use Illustrator or how to make a logo, come down to the Multimedia Lab in CP005. Thank you.